and welcome to this special broadcast on Salam Media with me, who was absolutely not expecting to be here in studio today, but here we are due to this unfortunate developing situation in the Gulf and in the wider Middle East. I am your host for this special broadcast, Abdullah Mwaswis. I'm a researcher affiliated with the Afro Middle East Center and with the Qatar South Africa Center for Peace and Intercultural Understanding. So, this morning at around 11 a.m. South Africa time, the Israeli Defense Forces Twitter account X account, who even is able to keep track these days, tweeted, and I'm quoting here: Operation Roaring Lion, the IDF and the the U.S. Armed Forces have launched a broad and joint operation to thoroughly degrade the Iranian terrorist regime and remove existential threats to Israel over time. This came hours after residents of Tehran began hearing bombs explode. Fars news agency reported a series of explosions in the capital, Tehran, at around 9:30 local time over there in Iran. The first two strikes were heard in University Street and the Jamhuri area. Um, Donald Trump has also weighed in. U.S. President Donald Trump has also weighed in to confirm, and I quote him here, that major combat operations, as he calls them, are underway, and he calls for a change in the regime in Iran. Since then, Iran has launched retaliatory strikes on Israel, as well as on US bases in the wider region, with strikes being heard in places such as Qatar, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. Iran has since stated that attacks on the Gulf states are only on the American military bases there and not on the host countries, although we will get more into that during the next 2 hours, where we will have several very interesting guests to discuss quite a few aspects of what is actually going on there at the moment. And with that, I bring on our first guest, who we spoke to just yesterday as part of the new morning broadcast of News and Views. Our first guest is Dr. Ali Alsayegh. He is currently an adjunct lecturer of politics at the Community College of Qatar, and his work focuses on the communicative and emotional dimensions of populism, and he's written quite a bit on Iran. And so joining us live from Doha in Qatar is Dr. Ali Sayeq. Assalamu alaikum, Ali. How are you doing?
Thank you, Dr. Abdullah, for having me. I'm great. How are you?
Well, I mean, great considering the circumstances, but alhamdulillah, we're sitting here and watching things emerge, of course, in this region where our loved ones both live. And so it is, I did not expect to be speaking to you twice this week, both times over the radio, rather than just simply over the phone. So Ali, tell us at the moment. We know that just yesterday, actually, you and I were talking about the fact that Iran was in negotiations with the United States over over its like nuclear program and what was going on with that, and we kind of both reached the point where we acknowledged that it seemed that the latest proposal put to Iran was one that was designed for Iran to reject it. That it seemed that really the US had kind of forced Iran into a situation that they couldn't really win in a sense. They either accept this agreement and capitulate entirely to the US, or they reject it and create a possible pretext for war. And so it seems that we are now in the latter situation. Given that we had been discussing this just slightly over 1 day ago, I mean, should we have seen the writing on the wall yesterday?
I think when it comes to what's been happening recently, the Donald Trump has time and time again been tricked by Israel to get closer and closer to war. So as we talked about yesterday, the negotiations were again never about Iran getting to a nuclear weapon. I mean, the Omani foreign minister said that during the negotiations, Iran actually did agree that they would give up on their premium enriched stockpile of nuclear material. But what America was trying to push Iran to do is to abandon its proxies all around the region. We're talking about, Lebanon, Iraq, their partnership with the Houthis in Yemen, and what we saw is that, and also Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State of the United States, said that they want Iran to give up on their ballistic missile program, which is a key way in which they are able to retaliate against Israeli aggression. So essentially, what the negotiations were about crippling Iran, bending the knee to Israeli hegemony, crippling Iran. It wasn't necessarily about the nuclear stockpile, but Iran did not budge on the missiles and the proxies. And so, what I think Israel has done is argue to Donald Trump that we need to posture aggressively against Iran. We need a military buildup in the region. You can see that Iran capitulated on the nuclear stockpiles. This is a moment where they're showing weakness. We should attack when they're weak. They will change their stance in the negotiations, and this is what has happened so far in terms of the strikes. Israel has conducted strikes against Iranian officials in their own residences at times, and which has also resulted in a missile being exploding on a school for little girls. Around 40 students have been killed. It is a terrorist act at the end of the day. And the US has focused on military targets of the Iranian state. So far, what I think Iran has been reading what has been happening. Israel keeps on trying to get America into an all-out war with Iran, waiting for Iran to misstep. The attacks that they've done on these bases here in the Gulf, although they have been really aggressive, and I could hear missiles being detonating around me. This has happened in Bahrain, the UAE, Kuwait, as well as Qatar, but they are still attacking empty US bases. They did not attack the US warship that's next to the Strait of Hormuz, for example. And that reflects something. It reflects that they are not willing yet to fall into the Israeli trap and kill US soldiers, which will force Trump to escalate it even further and risk an all out war.
Thank you, Ali. I mean, it seems like this is a very sort of measured response, and one definitely to keep an eye on. Ali, we have to go to a quick break, but please stay on the line with us for us to go even more deeply into this topic within a few minutes. So please stay tuned, dear listeners. We'll be back with you after this very short break.
With Ashraful Eid this Ramadan, your zakat changes lives. It feeds families facing hunger.
You are listening to Salam Media live from our headquarters in South Africa. This is Salam Media, keeping you company this Ramadan.
Thank you everyone for standing by. We are back live again here at Salam Media. I am your host for this special broadcast, Abdullah Mwaswas, based here for the time being at Salam Media Studio in Johannesburg. I'm joined live on the line by Dr. Ali Alsayegh from Doha. He is an adjunct lecturer of politics at the Community College of Qatar. Remember, dear listeners, as well, your questions, comments, and views are always welcome. Please feel free to join the conversation. Our studio line is 011-680-0355. You can reach us on WhatsApp as well at 061-766-0355. You can reach us on X at Salam Media. And of course, we are broadcasting live on Facebook, facebook.com/Salam Media, and live on Salam Media's website, salammedia.com/listen-live. Thank you for staying with us, Ali.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And so, Ali, I mean, the next question I think that kind of asks itself, and I believe, and I don't begrudge you for finding this question difficult to answer, considering that Iran at the moment is subject to a complete internet blackout. Is what impact will these strikes and this current situation have on the protest movement inside Iran? As we discussed yesterday, there has been an ongoing series of protests against the government in Iran effectively since the end of December 2025, with the latest round resuming very, very recently. And so will this, be seen as support for their movement? Will it be an opportunity for transformation, perhaps? Will that be how they see it? Or will this generate support for the government, considering that this is a very overt aggression from an external enemy?
I mean, if we look at it historically, when Iran has been faced with external aggression, even when we see that clearly there was not any sense of a consensus between different groups within the political spectrum, they do tend to unite against the external aggressor. This time around, it's a bit of a different situation, I think, with the popular uprisings that are happening, and even this sense of desperation, I think, of replacing the regime with another regime, even if it might be a monarchic one or one that is beholden to Western interests. But it is yet to be seen, really. There are things that are not very clear with regards to the question of how people on the ground are necessarily going to respond to this. Donald Trump has made his intention very clear that he wants these strikes to be a premonition to a on-the-ground mobilization, popular mobilization, that seeks to take over government ministries as well as some of the IRGC institutions possibly, but that is yet to be seen, I think. I think the situation is still very unclear. We're still in the fog of war. The situation could go in multiple different ways. I suspect that the strikes that Israel has conducted on the schoolgirls, the school for little girls, where 40 students have been killed, is certainly not going to help their intent to create that instability in Iran, where people can start to remobilize and fight against the regime. And that is, at the end of the day, what the intent of Israel is, which is to completely destabilize this country and get it into a state of all-out war, and also let the countries in the region near it, such as the Gulf states, to have to deal with the fallout. And I don't think that the U.S. or Trump thought that the situation was going to go is going to go necessarily this far, but Israel has already pushed Trump to do the first step, and once he does the first step, things can get messy, and Israel can definitely turn things towards its favor in terms of a full all-out war. But again, it is yet to see whether that is really going to happen. It depends on the Iranian response, and how measured it is when it comes to US personnel. We'll also have to see what happens tonight, because typically also their strikes do tend to happen also at night. And Donald Trump has said that this is going to be a multi-day operation. We don't know if it really is going to be a multi-day operation as of yet. The US administration keeps on sending different signals. There's just the other day, the vice president, J.D. Vance, said that US is not interested in a war in Iran. And then they make this step right now. So things are really unclear. There are multiple different scenarios that could unfold at the moment.
Absolutely. We are indeed right in the thick of the fog of war. One of the really interesting bits of news to come out of these developments, of course, was that among Israel's primary targets were the office of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, and the office of Iran's president as well, Masoud Pezeshkian. And a lot of, I think a major theme of the escalations against Iran so far have been that the US and American and Israeli policymakers don't seem to understand the position and the character and what the supreme leader Ali Khamenei actually represents. That he's not simply a president like Nicolas Maduro or even say Saddam Hussein, right? Like from if we're talking, the US invasion of Iraq, and he's not quite involved in governing the state in the same way as a president or a prime minister is. He hardly ever leaves Iran. His public appearances are very few. His ideological positioning is very different. The Iranian state has a very different structure to most states in the world. And it has multiple centers of political and military power as well. So can you tell us a little bit more about Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and what this attack upon his office also represents, and what are sort of the pitfalls as well of imagining him to be someone who's analogous to somebody like Nicolas Maduro?
I think it's absolutely fallacious to think that he is somehow analogous again to Nicolas Maduro, because on the one hand, he is a spiritual leader, whether we like it or not. When it comes to at least a minority of Iranians, a very vocal minority, he is a marja' al-taqlid. He is someone that is seen as the foremost religious authority on this earth, and is capable of discerning the commandments of God greater than anyone else. And that is something that we cannot take for granted. It does have a very strong emotional power to it. And simultaneously, when we think about his role, of course, there is this kind of emotional mobilizing role that he plays when it comes to that minority, maybe 10% of Iranians that are very vocal about politics in a way that he obviously approves of, his ideological stances. But also in terms of the functioning of the state, he is still important in the sense that, given the different actors within the Iranian context, a lot of them have divisions between themselves. The IRGC has divisions within themselves in terms of ways of approaching politics. There are obviously more institutions other than the IRGC, such as the charity organizations that operate in Iran. We also have to keep into consideration there are politicians, as well as the Bazaris. There are a lot of different factions in Iran. And what Khamenei does is, yes.
Sorry to very briefly cut you off, but just for the benefit of our listeners, the IRGC, of course, is the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps. Yes. And if you can just tell us a little bit more about who they are and what they represent before you continue the rest of your answer.
So the IRGC is a paramilitary organization. They were created after the Islamic Revolution in Iran, and their functioning is to effectively protect the message of the revolution. That is the idea, and they are separate from the military. In a way, they do keep the military in check. You can understand them as the personal sort of paramilitary organization for the Iranian regime. And of recently, over the past couple of decades, they have accumulated a lot of economic power within Iran and even beyond Iran, such as in places like Iraq. Ayatollah Khamenei is someone that builds consensus between all of these different factions. And so he has a very important kind of balancing role to play. But what has been happening recently is he has been talking about or designating successors for him, even more than one. There are successors for each and every sensitive government position as well, almost three to four. And what they are trying to do is essentially making sure that the Iranian regime, as we kind of know it today, is able to continue regardless of the killing of their leadership. So that's what they're doing today. It's a bit of a contingency plan to make sure everything runs smoothly, even in the situation where Khamenei or someone else, such as the president, is assassinated.
Thank you so much, Ali, and thank you for joining us during this special broadcast to tell our listeners about the situation in Iran and what is going on. Please stay safe, Dr. Ali. Inshallah, we will speak to you again soon, hopefully in better circumstances. We're very grateful for your time. And you know, as always, may Allah continue to accept your fasts and your efforts during this holy month.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And dear listeners, with that, we now go to a short break, after which we will be joined by another guest to discuss another dimension of the developing situation in Iran and the wider Middle East. Thank you very much. See you in a few minutes.